Hello everyone and welcome to the Emerald Madden League 2014 season wrap-up, the regular season wrap-up, here on Madden 15 for the Xbox One. I'm going to do something a little bit different for anybody who's been watching the Emerald Madden League videos. Excuse me. Not going to actually play a game here, but I'm going to kind of go over my regular season and take a look at the league playoffs as they stand going into the wildcard round. So before we get into that, for anybody who's interested in joining a connected franchise for Madden 15, we've got two options for you, one for the Xbox One and one for the PlayStation 4. If you're interested in either one, you want to head on over to iongamecorner.wix.com/iongc. Hit the Madden 15 page on the right-hand side. It'll give you all the rules for both leagues and what teams are taken. So we're actually winding down this first season, obviously, as you can see for the Xbox One, and I believe the PlayStation 4 league is right around the same spot. I believe they were playing Week 17 in the last couple of days, so both leagues are getting ready to head into the playoffs. So we'll be getting ready to start season number 2 soon, so it'll be a good time to jump on in if you're looking to join. Alright, so as you can see here, we're staring at the team screen, the standings highlighted here. And for anyone who watched the tragic Week 17 loss to the Texans by my Jaguars, you will see that A, I'm 7-9 and not in the playoffs, and B, that the Colts also lost in Week 17, which meant that if I won that game, I would have won the division and somehow made it to the playoffs. So yeah, that makes that loss even more disappointing. But what can you do? Overall, really not going to complain too much about a 7-9 record with the Jags, considering that I didn't completely overhaul the team. So let's actually go into the season stats and kind of take a look at what we got here. So Blake Bortles, obviously the vast majority of the playing time. Let's see, all but 2 pass attempts belong to him for the season. So we're looking at a completion percentage of 66% for the season. Not bad. Not a lot of yards. Just under 3,000. Touchdown to interception ratio is really where one of the bigger problems with the offense lay. You look at 11 touchdowns to 21 interceptions, so obviously that's something that needs to improve. And a quarterback rating of 76.3, which is really not great. So there, I mean, rookie quarterback. So some frustration during the season where you would notice that the changes that they made to the quarterback accuracy were really noticeable. Where I didn't have, one of the top echelon quarterbacks, there were times that there were some obvious or easy wide open throws that were just missed, and throws that maybe if I had a better quarterback probably would have been made. But it is what it is, and I'm not really looking to upgrade at quarterback. I think I'm going to stick it out with Bortles and see how I do. So here is a real depressing look at running back. So Toby Gerhart actually got injured in the preseason and missed, I believe, the first 4 weeks of the season. I had signed D'Angelo Williams as a free agent, and you obviously don't see him on the list because after Toby Gerhart returned, I actually made a trade with Mike, who is the Minnesota Vikings, who had just lost Adrian Peterson and for a significant amount of time. And so he was looking for a running back. I told him I traded him D'Angelo Williams, and we did a trade. I believe it was Williams for Charles Woodson, and I believe it was like a mid-round draft pick. Just because I figured, if I was giving up something, getting Woodson back was an upgrade to me at safety, but chances are he's most likely going to retire before next season. So I needed something else in return to justify the trade, so I got a draft pick in it. And not, I mean, realistically, I wasn't going to use Williams. I mean, he was going to be my second string running back, so that's not that big of a deal. So here's an interesting note here. Jordan Todman, who was the number 2 back. I mean, not a lot of carries, but if you note here, the 7.2 yards per carry, that's interesting, and I'm kicking around the idea of trying him out as my number 1 next season. The other idea is to use Denard Robinson, who got no action, as you see here, but I did play, I mentioned this in maybe the week 15 or week 16 video, that I used him in the online head-to-head because with the updated rosters, he's now the lead back for the Jaguars. So, had some success with running the ball with him, so really it was just not, I mean, I like to lean heavily on the ground, and the fact that, you know, I had a back who averaged just over 3 yards a carry and got under 500 yards for the season really isn't going to cut it. So that's definitely a place that I'm looking to upgrade in the off season, whether it's, you know, just trying out one of the other backs I have on the roster or seeing if I can upgrade either via free agency or the draft. So I should have made a note of, before I actually advanced this into the playoffs, as to what players I tried to re-sign and I couldn't re-sign, so I had an idea of who I'm definitely losing. But I'll actually go into that salary screen in a little bit after we go through all the stats here and just show there are a lot of expiring contracts on this team. Plus, I have a ton of cap room, so there's really a lot of room to really overhaul this team. So, which is really going to be needed, obviously, if seeing that, well, at least the offense. I mean, the defense, based on how I play, really held its own. We'll get into that in a little bit, but so let's go over to the receiving numbers. So as far as receptions go, it was Mercedes Lewis, which is not a huge surprise. He's a decent tight end, and a lot of times, especially when you're looking at offenses that really focus a lot on the ground, you use your tight ends a lot. So not surprising that he led the team in receptions. We'll go to yards, and again, it's Mercedes Lewis. Now, Justin Blackman, I'm not sure. He's one of the expiring contracts, and I'm not sure if I was able to re-sign him or not. So, being my top receiver, I may be in the need to replace him. Let's look over touchdowns, and not a ton of touchdowns. As remember, we saw Bortles only threw 11 for the entire season. So, there you go. Anemic offense, basically. It was dead last in the league. We'll look at rankings in a little bit. So, tackles, defensively. Deceptive stat in this game a lot of times, especially when you're not running 15-minute quarters. Even more so when, like I've mentioned, that I play the style that I play. The thing is, and it was funny because we had this little sort of discussion argument at the end of the last video when Nick, who runs the PlayStation 4 League, jumped into the chat. We used to, last year we only had the one league on the Xbox 360. So, and then once kind of the next gen systems came out, everybody in the league kind of split to either the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4. So that was kind of the genesis of the two leagues this year. Main point being is that the discussion was that I believe it was the first season of last year's league, I ended up winning the Super Bowl against Nick, and maybe it wasn't the first, maybe it was the second year. Well, it was, I don't know which, but point being, I ended up beating him twice in the Super Bowl. Once, the first time, really frustrated him because basically what I did was he had a very prolific offense, and I not so much. So I knew going into the game that there was no way that I was going to be able to go through a shootout with him. And what I did was, what you will see NFL teams do when they go up against a team like the Broncos who can put points up at will is, one idea is that you try and keep that offense on the sidelines as much as possible and try and win the time of possession war. And that's basically what I did. I think, remembering back to that, I think I held the ball for almost the entire first quarter. And I think the only snap he ran on offense in the first quarter was a fumble that I recovered. So, yeah, there you go. So he, needless to say, that was a very frustrating experience for him. But point being is that one of the things that I do, and excuse me, it's not even just, you know, going up against prolific offenses, is I do like to slow the game down. And part of that is before the last couple of years when I would play online connected franchise leagues, is I would play my offline ones, the franchise mode, and I would play them at 15-minute quarters. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to try and have my games at least be somewhat realistic and not have, you know, crazy video game quote-unquote stats, which we'll get to at some point when we look at the season stats for this league. But so, I would run the accelerated clock. I would even let the clock run down a little bit more than that, not just, call a play, get to the line, snap the ball as quickly as possible. I would try and, keep the number of plays during the game to a somewhat, realistic number. So when you translate that to like the Emerald Madden League where we play 7-minute quarters, you're going to see a drastic reduction in the number of drives and the number of plays in a game, which you've noticed if you watched the videos that I posted throughout the season. So, interesting that at least Paul Posluszny is here close to 100 tackles for the season, but then after that, there's a drastic drop-off in the number of tackles. So, and a lot of that is just a byproduct of that there's just not enough offensive plays run by the other team during my games. So, let's head on. That was a very long-winded way to explain all that. So sacks, some decent numbers here. Nothing great, nothing ridiculous. Like we'll see. Like I said, when we go over the complete season stats. So we're looking at Senderic Marks, Red Bryant, and Chris Clemens all leading the team with 8. Interesting that Jason Babin has 5 sacks because he got all of those in the first few games because Clemens was hurt for, I want to say, the first 4 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and after that Babin didn't get a whole lot of playing time. So very interesting that he got 5 sacks in a very short amount of time. Interceptions, not a whole lot. I mean, secondary played well. The biggest problem I had on defense was stopping the run, and when you combine that with the fact that there are so few drives left in the game because of the way that I play offense, it kind of is a dangerous combination because if you can't stop the run, especially when you're looking at 7-minute quarters, and the computer in this game is in no hurry to run plays. I mean, you're looking at potentially a half of a quarter to a quarter gone in one drive if you can't slow down a team on the ground. So that's another, even though the fact that, and again, like the tackles, a very deceptive stat, that the Jaguars, my team, were number 1 in the league in yards allowed. I think I finished the season number 1 yards allowed, and points per game allowed. Still definitely some room for improvement on the defense. The offense, though, is a much more pressing issue. Nothing really else to look at here. I don't think there was anything of note as far as special teams go for the return game. Yeah, no touchdowns on either kickoffs or punts. So yeah, so that's kind of the state of the Jaguars as far as how the season played out. Let's actually look at it. We'll go to the league stats and is there a way? Yeah, there's a way for me to do this. I could have just stayed in the other one, right? Yeah, there we go. Alright, let's go to NFL. So let's see. Rating. Brian Hoyer. Interesting that if you look at, 69 pass attempts, which on the surface is like, wow, he only played a couple of games. But if you look at who's next, Colin Kaepernick, who's the actual starter for Matt in San Francisco, and you may have saw or seen, I speak very good English, He only had 141 passing attempts. You will see this when we go to the rushing stats that Matt really focused on the run game and only passed, I think, when absolutely necessary. I mean, I didn't see any of his games, but just looking at the stats every week, you can definitely tell. So, I guess what had happened is that Kaepernick, I don't know if he was a preseason injury or if it was a week 1 injury, but he went down very early in the season and was out for a few games. So, Matt had traded for Brian Hoyer and used him as his starter for a little while. So, let's get out a rating and look at yards. And it should be, yep, Russell Wilson, 5,015. We'll see this when we get into the receiving stats. Is Jeremy, who is the Seahawks, traded for Calvin Johnson and really just put up some ridiculous numbers with him. We'll get to that in a second, but Russell Wilson was the beneficiary, and you can see 5,000 yards. Cam Newton next with almost 5,000 yards. Interesting thing about this, and I think I might have mentioned it in last broadcast of Week 17, is that Shane, who is the Panthers, last year, also when he as the Panthers, was completely the opposite as far as in offensive style. It was pretty much run, 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 and very few pass attempts. And I don't know if he found it more difficult to run this year, or if he just decided to show that he can throw, but he definitely showed he could throw. So let's look at, let's see, we'll go through the user teams here. Let's see, who's the next? Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton here for the Bengals. Brian, 3,978. Tom Brady for Bobby, the Patriots. Where are we going to get someone next? Peyton Manning for Ryan, who is the Broncos. Then we keep going. We'll find someone eventually here. Teddy Bridgewater for Mike, who is the Vikings. And Mike was interesting because Mike took a few weeks to kind of get into his groove. Struggled a little bit in the early season and kind of flipped around back and forth between Castle and Bridgewater. I think Bridgewater was hurt for a little while. I almost want to say he even used... no, he didn't use Christian Ponder. Maybe he did. I don't remember. But anyway, so eventually he had lost Peterson for a while, like I mentioned earlier, and finally settled in and really started getting his groove with Bridgewater and Peterson. So let's keep going here. There's Blake Bortles, which I believe this is going to put me at the very bottom. Oh no, maybe not for fasting because we haven't seen the San Francisco quarterbacks yet. So let's see: Raiders, Dolphins, Eagles, Titans. And here's Colin Kaepernick. But I mean, look at the rating. So I mean, he made the most of the opportunities that he did throw the ball. Let's see. We're getting that is Brian Hoyer. I think we have hit everyone. Here's Matt Castle, who got some decent playing time early in the season. So yeah, I think that's pretty much definitely all the starters. So all the users, and you can see kind of how that went, and you can see that there was really no correlation between wins and losses and passing yards. So which is interesting. So look at passing touchdowns. Russell Wilson again blowing everybody away, 46. Cam Newton, 36. Andy Dalton, 35. Your top three. So interesting if you look at the interception numbers here for Wilson. So it just shows how much Jeremy threw the ball. He was able to throw 5,000 yards, 46 touchdowns, while also throwing 49 interceptions. So let's sort this. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Top 5 all users. That's funny. Then computer, and then 3 more users. So yeah, we threw a lot of interceptions this year. So there's the passing numbers. Let's go to rushing, and here, yeah, there it is. Ridiculous. Frank Gore, 3,118 yards. Now, what's almost as ridiculous as right there, the average, 9.7 yards per carry. That is goofy. Absolutely goofy. So kudos for Matt for being able to do that, but good grief, that's ridiculous. So as we go down the list here, we'll look at, see if we can find any other users. Who's the next highest user? Here it is, Reggie Bush, who Jeremy acquired in the same trade, I believe, that he acquired Calvin Johnson. Mark Ingram for Josh and the Saints, who actually poor Josh got fired. I'll take a couple minutes just to talk about this. Maybe a couple minutes. I don't know if it's going to take that long. But one thing to note is that if you are doing a connected franchise league, you have the option of, if you go as a coach, you have the option of either taking over an existing coach or creating a new coach. It's kind of a mixed bag, depending on you going either way. If you make a new coach, you have no legacy, you have no experience, you have no coach traits, you're basically building yourself up from scratch, which is fine. Makes things a little bit harder for on some level, but you also have very low expectations. Even if you take over a team that, should have high expectations, your expectations are not quite as high as what an established coach's would be. That's the big issue with, if you take over an established coach, like Josh did, he took over, I believe the guy's name is Dusty McDonald, because, drawing a blank. I can see the guy's face. The Saints coach, Sean Payton. Wow, that was bad. Since Sean Payton is not in the game, Dusty McDonald, I believe, is the name that they made up for the Saints coach. So, but you're basically talking about Sean Payton. So, taking over him, you're going into the season with much higher expectations, and I believe Josh finished the season at 7-9, just outside the playoffs. So, hence he did not reach his goals, and was fired. So, kind of a mixed bag, and it's a catch-22. So when you're joining a connected franchise, it's kind of what you want to weigh when you're deciding. I know some people just like to take over a coach because it's quicker and it gets you going quicker, but sometimes it's better to make your own. Plus, it's cool just to make yourself in the game. Let's see, what else do we got here? Le'Veon Bell. Did we see Adrian Peterson? No, we did not see Adrian Peterson. Oh, he's right. Oh, he's right below him. Huh, interesting. Mike thought he had 2,000-yard rushers, and he did not. He did not have any, but he had two guys who were pretty close. So, as I mentioned that when I was talking about my team, that Adrian Peterson went down with a pretty significant injury early in the season, and Mike had traded for D'Angelo Williams with me. Oh, there's D'Angelo. Look at that. That's convenient. He had traded for D'Angelo Williams with me, really was struggling with him, and decided he needed to go out and get a better running back to replace Peterson since he was going to be gone for a while, and made a trade with the Steelers to secure Le'Veon Bell. So, yeah, did quite well with Bell, and then when Peterson came in, I mean, looking at 182 carries, I don't know if games played is going to be downs played. So there you go. 449 downs was all Peterson played, and racked up 892 yards. So pretty good. Plus, he also factored in a decent amount in Mike's passing game. So anyway, so there's a kind of a look at the rushing leaders going to receiving, and yeah, look at that goofiness. Oh man, Calvin Johnson, 3,574 yards, just ridiculous. 128 receptions. Look at this, 223 yards per game, 32 touchdowns. I mean, this is just silly, real silly stuff. So then we have Odell Beckham, as you know, is on the Panthers because it seemed like Shane did whatever he could to get any rookie wide receiver he could. I think he also has Sammy Watkins. Was he the one who has Sammy Watkins? I think so. Maybe he's not high enough to warrant me doing this. Anyways, so I think I remember saying that Shane had 3 rookie wide receivers. So very interesting that his passing game is going to be set for a while, although depending on how long we go, we may run into some issues when it comes time to re-sign all those guys. So then we got Julius Thomas from the Broncos, who was Ryan's main target. AJ Green with the Bengals. And I think think we're going to go for a while before we find somebody else here with a user team. So, but yeah, main point is Calvin Johnson had a ridiculous season. So let's go to defense, and we're about to see some more ridiculousness. So, tackles, not too concerned about. All right, brace yourself for this. Yeah, 56 sacks for Michael Bennett. I don't even know where to begin with this. I mean, so let's see. Let's do some quick math here. So 56 sacks divided by 16 games gives you an average of 3.5 sacks a game. Yeah. Guarantee you we're going to see a lot of users here in the top because I don't know if what happened. Maybe the changes that they made to defense made it a lot easier for people to get sacks this year. I don't know, but let's see. Navarro Bowman, 25. Starlo Tulele, Panthers, 16. Charles Johnson, also with the Panthers, 14. We got some Jordan Hill with the Seahawks, 9. Cliff Averill with the Seahawks, 9. So, yeah. Some Dominican Sue with the Vikings, as you'll notice there. So, yeah. Some real goofy stats for sacks there. Let's go to interceptions. I don't think we're going to see too many users. We got Richard Sherman here with 8. Up at the top, Earl Thomas with 6. So, Champ Bailey with 6. So, nothing too crazy about the interception numbers. I'm going to show this just because I find it interesting that there was definitely some changes done to special teams going into Madden 15 because we had routinely in last year's game people running kickoffs back for touchdowns. And let's see how many. I want to say, just off of memory, that we're only going to see one user with a kickoff return for a touchdown. I believe it was Shane, but we'll see. So let's see. Cole. Oh, there we go. Rod Sweeting with the Saints, so Josh got 1. So maybe 2. There it is. Ken John Barker with the Panthers. So only 2 kickoff returns for the touchdowns. So definitely much better representation of what you normally see in an NFL season. Same deal with punt returns. I don't know if anyone had a punt return for a touchdown. Mike Wallace. Yep. So there you go. There's a look at kind of the individual stats. Let's look at quickly the team rankings. So total offense, San Francisco by quite a bit, 500 yards here. Followed up by the Panthers and the Seahawks as the top 3. Let's see. 4, 5, 6 is the Vikings. 7, 8, 9, 10. The Broncos. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I wish they had these numbered so I wouldn't have to count this. Excuse me. 16, 17, 18, 20. The Bengals, who, I mean, Ryan actually had a really good season, so 21, 22. The Patriots. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. The Saints. 30, 31, 32. The Jaguars. Yeah. There you go. So, like I said, offense, glaring need for me to fix here in the offseason. Let's see, passing yards. Interesting that Russell Wilson actually led the league in pass yards, but not as a team, which leads me to believe that he got sacked an awful lot. So we got Panthers at 1, Seahawks 2, Broncos at 5. So they see let's see, Bengals at 7 and the Patriots at 10. So those guys are kind of users in the top 10 of passing yards. Rushing yards, this will be the 49ers by a ridiculous landslide. Yeah, look at that. Now, keep in mind, what did we say that Frank Gore had 3,000 something yards? So that means that between, and it was a lot of it was Kendall Hunter. Excuse me. Kendall Hunter must had somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,400 yards. He also had Niall Davis, I believe, who he acquired. So maybe I didn't see that. I don't know if I saw Hunter having 1,000 yards, so that might have been split between both Hunter and Davis. But yeah, ridiculous. So we have 49ers at 1, Vikings at 3. We have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so those are the only two rushing teams in the top 10 as far as users go. Points per game, which is really what matters the most as far as offense goes. 49ers at 1, Panthers 2, Seahawks 3, Vikings 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Broncos, and the Packers. And let's see, 32. Yep, 11 points per game. So, if you put that in context, if you consider the fact that I went 7-9 while only scoring 11 points per game, that speaks pretty well to the defense, which you'll see there. So, you'll see in a little bit. So let's see, passing touchdowns, first downs. Yeah, we don't need to look at that. Defense. #1 defense in the league. By 300 yards. So we have me at 1, the Jaguars, 49ers 2, Vikings 3, Panthers 4, Bengals 5, Patriots 6, Saints 7, Seahawks 8, Browns 9, Broncos 10. So 9 of the top 10 were our users, which speaks well for everyone playing defensively. Pass yards 1, me. This is the one place I can brag. 49ers 2, Seahawks 3, Vikings 4, Patriots 5, Saints 6, Panthers 7, Bengals 8, Broncos 9. So 9 out of the top 10 again. And then for rush yards, 49ers 1. And here you see the drop-off because you notice first in total, first in pass, you don't see the Jaguars anywhere up here. So this was the big Achilles heel for the defense. So let's see, 49ers 1, Panthers 3, Bengals 4, Saints 6, Vikings 8. So now you see a lot of people had some trouble with the stopping the run here. So let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th in the league at stopping the run. So not terrible, but definitely you can see, rush to pass comparison there. And we shall look at points. Oops. 1, closely followed by Matt, who put up a lot more points than I did, which is why he was 15-1. Panthers 3, 4, 5, Saints 6, Bengals 7, 8, Vikings at 9. So that round, there you go. So few people in the top 10 as far as points allowed. Sacks, I don't even think we need to look at this, but yeah, there you go, Seahawks. Conversions, turnovers. Turnovers is always a fun story. Differential, 49ers. So, 49ers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The only user in the top 10 is Matt. Let's see how bad I did. Dead last? Dead last? Oh, pretty close. 31, 30, 30th, minus 17. So yeah, those interceptions were costly. So that'll give you an idea of kind of how everyone did. We'll go through awards and records after the playoffs when I do a complete postseason wrap up. So that kind of gives you an idea of how everyone did. So. Before we get to the playoffs, I just want to go into my team. And just to give you an idea, going to the salaries, like I mentioned before, and we'll sort this by years remaining. Now, keep in mind that anybody with a 1 here is actually expiring, even though it's... So, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12... 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 30 players with expiring contracts on this team. So that's interesting. And I am receiving a phone call, so hang on 1 second. I'll be right back with you guys. Alright, I am back. So let's look at the roster. And I don't know if I have... Yeah, they don't show the years remaining on here. So, just looking at... We're going to go position by position and just kind of look at kind of the thought process and where some improvements definitely need to be made. And, you know, if you have any suggestions or what you would do if you were me, you can leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. So, here we see at quarterback, we've got Blake Bortles and Chad Henne. Bortles now a 78, so I'm okay with that. Obviously, I would like to have a better quarterback, but where he's a rookie, my options really are to either try and trade, which I don't like to do a ton of trades because you don't see too many of them in the NFL. A lot of times, the only times you'll see me doing a trade is if I am getting up against the cap and I need to clear some space, so I'll start trying to trade players off for picks to try and clear up some room. So, I mean, I could try and get a free agent quarterback who would be better than Bortles, but, you know, where he's a 78 1 year into the league, I think I can get him a little bit better. And if I can improve my running game, it puts less of an emphasis on my quarterback play. So Henne as a backup is fine. Not worried about that. A veteran backup is fine. Not really going to do too much at quarterback. Here's one of the problems is running back. So Toby Gerhart, I wasn't paying attention to the names as I was flipping through that salaries list to see what the expiring deals were. But one way or another, Toby Gerhart is not going to be the starting halfback for the Jacksonville Jaguars next year. Whether I go to Jordan Todman, which, you know, being an overall 72, not really comfortable with him as a starter. I may definitely look at free agents for running back because that's one of the more important. It's funny because in the actual NFL, there's kind of a de-emphasis on running backs for a lot in most situations, where it's kind of like, oh, we can just get a few guys who can share the carries and do that. But with the way I like to play offense, I really need a much better running back. So you're going to see that combined with something else we're about to see that is where I think a lot of the improvements need to be made on this team. So one way or the other, there's hopefully going to be someone better than Toby Gerhart sitting atop this list as we go into the 2015 season. Fullback, Lex Hilliard, fine. I don't use my fullback a lot. A lot of times the only time I'll have a fullback on the field is late in the fourth quarter from trying to protect a lead. I start really going with a power run game, so totally fine with Lex Hilliard. Here's the interesting list of receivers. Blackman, I think, may not be back just because I think his contract is expiring, and I believe he declined my contract offer. So that's a decent hole to fill. Fine with Cecil Shorts. Allen Robinson was actually really, really good for me in the slot, and really Marquise Lee sees a little bit of play. Ace Sanders is my kickoff returner, so I believe I did re-sign Tandon Doss, so probably not going to be a whole lot done to the wide receiver core, unless, like I said, if Blackman's gone, I'm going to have to replace him and find a serviceable number one. So, but again, the more pertinent goal is to get a better running game so that maybe it doesn't quite matter if I don't have an elite receiver, but we'll see how that plays out. Tight ends I was fairly happy with. Obviously, Mercedes Lewis led the team in receiving. He is getting up there. He's over 30 now, so interesting to see how much longer he's actually going to stay around. Fred Davis was actually a free agent pickup at the beginning of the season. I believe I wanted to upgrade my second tight end, so I picked him up. Totally fine with those two. I mean, if I can get another better tight end, I may look into it. So, but not a priority. Now we're going to start getting into the priorities. Offensive line was bad, really bad, which I think is part of the reason why my running game was so poor. Aside from the fact that Toby Gerhart was my lead back, but so left tackle, okay. Luke Jokel, I believe that's how you pronounce that. That's how it looks like it's pronounced. 83, I can live with that. Left guard, Joe Wright, 72. Yeah, gonna look to upgrade here. Center, Mike Brewster, 71. Another position is going to need to be upgraded. Right guard, Zane Beadle, 76. Not as much of a priority as the previous two. Right tackle, Austin Pastor, who actually has improved. He was a 69 for most of the season. Now he's up to a 71, but another place that really needs improvement. So, needless to say, there's going to be a lot of attention paid in the offseason on the offensive line because between that and running back, I think those are really the two glaring needs for me as far as offensively goes. Yeah, I could try and find a better quarterback than Bortles. Yeah, I could try and bump up my receiving core. But if I keep this line the way it is, forget it. It's not going to matter what else I do. Let's look defensively. Defensively, now again, first in the league as far as points per game allowed, as far as yards per game allowed, so or total yards allowed. So not as much of a priority as the offense, but there will be some room for improvement. So typically, if I have at least 80 or better at every position, I'm not really, crazy concerned about it. So it'll be one of those situations where, depending on the cap room that I have, that'll really dictate where I do really spend the money to try and improve. So Red Bryant at 83 is totally fine. Chris Kledman's at 86. That's great. No concerns there. Defensive tackle, Senderick Marks, 83. Ziggy Hood, 76. I do run the 4-3, so potential for improvement there if I can. But if not, not the end of the world to have your second defensive tackle in the 70s. But, let's go back to there. Again, we talked about one of the main issues I had on defense was stopping the run. So, maybe that second D tackle spot is a position I look at. Left outside linebacker, Dakota Watson, 78. Could be better. Paul Posluszny, 82. Decent. Led the team in tackles, but, again, where the run was an issue, that front seven really may need to be looked at more than I think it might. Right outside linebacker, Geno Hayes. Yeah, so linebackers, there's definitely some room for improvement in the linebacker core. Some games really had trouble stopping the run up the middle, so maybe it's middle linebacker and defensive tackle that I look at, but having some more speed on the outside might help as well. Secondary seemed okay. Look at Corey Webster, 82, Dwayne Gratz at an 81. Not great. Webster even, I think, was a free agent pickup at the beginning of the season. You notice he's 33 years old, so there is a chance that he could retire. He's getting close to that point where he could retire. So, corner is probably an area that I will need to look at. Free safety, Charles Woodson. Yeah, again, he's 38. If I'm a betting man, he's retiring. So I don't think that I'm going to be able to rely on him being back. So we notice that Sherrod Martin is next in the depth chart at 71. Probably going to need to pick up a free safety in the offseason. Strong safety, Jonathan Cyprin at 78. So yeah, safety, definitely a position that's going to need to be looked at. So you can see, there are a ton of improvements needed on this team. So the one place that probably doesn't, kicker. Josh Scobie, totally fine. Punter, Brian Anger, 79. Punter, not a concern. So let's see. What do I have here for draft picks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's what it was. It was a third-round pick in 2016 that I got from Mike. And I believe the only reason I got a 2016 pick from him is because I think that was one of the highest picks he actually had left. there's nothing that I can really do about this. It does bother me a little bit that we have a few guys in the league who will trade off all or almost all of their draft picks to acquire players. It's their choice. I mean, the fact is that in last year's game we did play 5 seasons, so I mean it could come back to bite them down the road, where they don't have draft picks to replace players with younger, cheaper options, and as you know, it can put them up against the salary cap for that reason too. But I mean, I would prefer that people not do that, but I mean, I really can't say unless I make a rule about it. There's nothing I can really do about it. It's their team. If that's what they want to do, I guess there's nothing that I can really stop them from doing it. The only thing that, and I will mention this, and it's in the rules if you check it out, is that when we get towards the end of this year's Madden run, so you figure probably as we get into like June-ish, when it looks like we're going to have about one more full season before Madden 16 comes out, we do ban the trading of draft picks. So, because really, I mean, there's nothing for you to, you're not losing anything at that point, because we're not, we're at, say, the 2018 season, and by the time that finishes, we're going to be up against or right up against when Madden 16 comes out, and then we're going to transition to Madden 16. You're basically trading things that are useless to you. So I decided that that would be one of the rules, is that once we decide when that last season is going to be of this year's game, that you are no longer allowed to trade draft picks. So there you go. That's kind of where the Jaguars stand. So major needs: running back, obviously, offensive line, clearly, interior defense, defensive tackle, linebackers, and the safeties. So right up the middle, and obviously that's going to be a big thing to work on. So let's quickly, before I wrap this up, we'll go right back into that salaries thing, just so I can get it, so we can look at, maybe pay attention this time. So let's see who we have. So we got 65 corner, 68 offensive line. Let's see if we have any actual starters here. Will Blackman, who is maybe is my dime corner, also my punt returner, but not a big deal. Let's see. So there's Pastor, who is right now my starting right tackle. So may try and re-sign him, just maybe to have as a backup. Hopefully, if I can get someone better. Oh, Tandon Doss. I thought I re-signed him. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was a different receiver that I re-signed. So Sherrod Martin, who we noted was the backup to Charles Woodson, who is likely retiring. Let's see. So Wrights, who is the starting left guard. Todman. Chad Henne, but whatever, I can find a backup quarterback, not worried about that. Ball, who is my nickel corner. Justin Blackman, so, and my kicker. And Mercedes Lewis, so Woodson. So if Woodson doesn't retire, there's that. Corey Webster, like I said, who was a free agent pickup. And Lex Hilliard, so fullback, but not worried about that. I can pretty much get any fullback I want. So, sorry, you're still going here. So my starting right side linebacker, Hayes. My punter, my second tight end. So there you go. So a few starters. So that's going to be something to pay attention to. But I mean, if you look right now, and this is as it sits right now, this is not going into the off season. Going into next season, as of now, I have $36.5 million in cap space. So, and only a million and change in cap penalties. So there is going to be a lot of room to do some stuff. So I think normally with better teams, I'm not as active in free agency, because I like to build through the draft, and I kind of fill holes as needed through free agency. There are a lot of holes, and I have a lot of money to spend. So, hopefully, I can make a splash in free agency and really get this thing turned around. So, all right. So right before we wrap this up, let's look at the playoff schedule. We'll look at the standings. We'll go through it that way, and then we'll look at the schedule. So let's start in the AFC. So there you see the Steelers with the home field advantage throughout the playoffs at 12-4. Ryan, the Bengals, the next best record in the AFC, but unfortunately in the AFC North with the Steelers, so stuck as a wild card, the 5 seed. The Chiefs pull out the tiebreaker and win the AFC West. The Chargers with the wild card in the West. Here we go. Poor Ryan, 8-8, out of the playoffs by a game. Texans, who beat me to win the AFC South, and Bobby the Patriots, who actually didn't play his last game, but the computer defeated the Bills for him, which gave him the AFC East. So some really mediocre teams in the playoffs in the AFC. Now we flip to the NFC, where it's a lot stronger. Matt with home field advantage throughout the playoffs at 15-1. Shane at 13-3, the other first round bye. Jeremy at 12-4, the 5 seed. Mike, the NFC North division winner, 12-4, is the 3 seed. The Redskins, who are the computer, who won the NFC East. And the Bears with the wild card at 10-6 at the 6. So no team in the NFC playoffs with less than 10 wins, and in the AFC, only 2 teams in the playoffs have more than 10 wins. So let's head on over to the schedule so you can see the wild card round schedule and how it breaks out. So we've got Chargers and Texans. Mike takes on the Bears. Bobby and Brian head-to-head, the Bengals and the Patriots. And Jeremy has the Redskins. And we have Shane and Matt with the first round bye in the NFC. Nick just joined the chat. Good for Bobby. Yeah, got in at 8-8, Nick. And he actually didn't play his last game. It was simulated and the computer won it for him. So he'll have a tough task against him here against Brian. Brian struggled a little bit early in the season, but really had a couple of tough games towards the end. But I think should be an interesting game. So that is your wild card round schedule. So there you go. So that's pretty much going to do it for this regular season wrap up. We will do another one of these after the Super Bowl to go over the playoffs. We'll go over some of the records that were shattered, completely shattered, and we'll set the stage for the off season. So again, so will be another non-game one since I'm not playing playoff games. That'll be at the end of the Super Bowl, and the next one after that will be the draft. We're gonna stream the draft live, so it should be interesting to see how that works out. So it's gonna do it. So thanks everyone for watching. Oh, yep, I forgot once again. If you are interested in joining a connected franchise league, head on over to iongamecorner.wix.com/iongc. Hit the Madden 15 page on the right hand side. I'll give you all the rules and teams that are taken for both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 League. If you are interested in joining the Xbox One League, and I can't do the convenient look at the screen thing, Xbox One, contact me, Arethius, AURETHIOUS, on Xbox Live. You can also reach me via email, iongamecorner@gmail.com, or via Twitter @iongamecorner. And for the PlayStation 4 League, you want to talk to Nick, you can reach him on PlayStation Network, Kagone, Kagone, or on Twitter @NickOliveira87. So that's going to do it. Thanks everyone for checking this out, and we'll catch you after the Super Bowl.